All right, and share screen. Okay, so on the Whack to Click website, under training from the homepage, there is an Alma training section, and then I have created a new page called tutorials. The Alma training page has stuff from Ex Libris. So the tutorials is where I want to start collecting some of these baseline directions. So if people are brand new to the role, or you're just not sure what you know or don't know, these are going to be somewhat entry level. So activating electronic collections, I've put together a minimal step. I think it's 6 steps, 7 steps. And I'm going to walk you guys through what I did as well today, but you'll be able to refer to this. And I think the thing that I was very kind of excited to learn, because I've been doing this for a while, is that Ex Libris maintains CDI collection lists. So when you purchase a new collection, and you want to know whether or not it is available, it is possible to download this Excel sheet, which is kept up monthly. I think it said on the site. This one was updated as recently as 3 days ago. Got this great ability to sort and filter. So what I thought would be interesting is to activate some open access resources. So I went to what was it? Full text, and it's full text rights is the full heading on it. But you can see that you have an option to limit to partially open access, hybrid, or subscription. So I'm just going to limit to open access. And as you can see, there are many. And I also want a database of multiple things. And so now we have some familiar ones like JAMA, Science and Technology OERs from Bibliolabs. But you can see there are many that have been set up with CDI. So I was looking for OpenStax, thinking about students being able to find textbooks that they might come across in their courses, and being able to find them through the library, even though of course they are available on the web as well. So I just searched for OpenStax and I found it, and it's called OpenStax College. So I knew that it was there. So then I logged in to Big Ben's instance and did a search for electronic collection by keyword, and just used OpenStax, and it wasn't available in the institution zone prior to me activating it. And Amanda, I will totally unactivate it and delete it if you want me to. But when I did the search, it came up right at the top with minimal results, which is great. But I often use the interface when I'm trying to narrow down. If I'm looking for something and my keyword is leaving me with like 50 results, because usually you're like, oh yeah, well, it's definitely a ProQuest thing. And so the interface is a great way to narrow that down. So we can see the service is full text. We've got link in record, which is what we're expecting, linking levels at the book, and the most recent modification date is fairly recent. So prior to the Alma update that they did back in August, I think it was, I can't even remember from Tuesday reading it. This modification date was my biggest clue that it was an active and supported collection. But now it's got this management level tag over on the right, as well as how many institutions have it activated, which is pretty awesome because more than once I definitely fooled around and tried to find something and ended up with a collection that had been shared to the community zone from someone's local collection, and it meant absolutely nothing. So we want to choose this one. So we hit activate. It's going to tell me it's already activated. Just go through and do it again. And it brings you into the activation wizard. So one of the things that I am a big proponent of is choosing a public name override that is what users expect to see. So if someone is looking for an OpenStax textbook, they're not going to think OpenStax College. So I went ahead and changed it to OpenStax textbooks. I didn't select anything as far as library because Big Bend doesn't have multiple locations to choose from, but if you are someplace with multiple locations, but I would, I just doing it for all of them. I kept the bib as suppressed, which is something I always do when I'm initially activating something so that it doesn't show up and not be working. I can test it first. This is an open access collection, so there is no proxy. And I want it to show up as full text. So I'm not going to click do not show as full text. And then to activate it, you have to select these first two. And then because I know that anything else they put into this collection is also going to be open access and I want it to be included, I'm also going to choose automatically activate new portfolios. And that's all I do. If you have an active from date that's in the future, because it's something you're going to purchase or, like the contract's not quite there yet, you can always set that as in the future. So then you go next, and it will ask you to confirm. It asks you to confirm the proxy setup again. And then this is where if you are activating a collection where you only want some of the portfolios, this is where I recommend you choose those portfolios through manual activation. But we're going to activate all. And it'll show us how many are going to get activated there. And depending on the size of the collection, sometimes these jobs take a few seconds, like this one did. And sometimes it'll say, you'll get an email when the job has successfully completed. So now I can go back to the institution level and we have two activated. Sorry, Amanda, I swear I'll fix it. And from here, you want to make sure that it is what you want and that everything is set up correctly. So you're going to go into edit collection. And this is where you can make sure that the public override name you've chosen is still what you want. Under general, it will also allow you to add a PO line. So again, if you're using acquisitions, if you have licenses loaded, you can choose from the drop down of licenses here. If you need to change the proxy that is enabled or change the language, you can do that here in additional. And then in CDI, it will tell you the status of the institution settings, but you cannot change those settings from here. So all this looks good to me. So I'm just going to go back out to the record. But say I did, want to change the CDI activation settings. That's going to be under more actions. And it's going to be under edit service. So this is where if you're experiencing issues or you need to maybe change which portfolios are activated, you can make the entire service unavailable. If you find out that you don't want to automatically activate new portfolios, you can change that. You can change the active from date. If something's going on with the service or your subscription and you want to make it temporarily unavailable but allow it to remain in search, you can do that here. And you can also look at which portfolios have been activated and make changes to deactivate or load additional ones into the collection. So it is very easy when you're looking at these screens so many times in a row to confuse edit service with edit collection and then wonder why you can't change the thing that you thought you wanted to change. So since we have two in here, I am going to delete so we don't have two. And I am going to also delete the bibliographic records because we have two. And hopefully that will process and Amanda will only be left with one collection that she did not activate. So that is my very mini, very basic tutorial on activating collections. And I would say my top tips on this is using the CDI collection lists rather than starting with a fresh search so that you know what it is you are looking for. Checking the management level of the collection so that you can tell right away whether this is something created at a local institution or managed by Ex Libris. And then the other thing is if you do want to do portfolio level activation, go ahead and wait until you're at the that step in the activation wizard, rather than walking through this activation process for every single individual portfolio that you're interested in. So that is hopefully helpful to some, probably not helpful to everybody. And I know that not everyone is an e-resource wrangler. So I'd love to get feedback on, level of instruction, the like the tutorial setup here that I've created on the website. Do you prefer written out with screenshots versus short videos? Yeah, just anything or any questions about e-resource management that that's probably what I am most prepared to speak to today, but we can also open the floor and share knowledge on anything else that's going on with you guys.
I'll chime in. This was really cool. I do a bit of wrangling of electronic resources, but how it all kind of fits together, the timing was great. Like I'm not gonna sit through, I didn't have to slog through a half an hour, just kind of following along. I thought this was really lovely. So it's good reminder and also exposure and also like, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing if I'm gonna do it again soon. I thought this was really cool. Thanks, Carly.
Well, and I would love to kind of put together a list of some of these open packages, so that, like they're vetted ahead of time and you're not getting a bunch of duplicate records, because like Biblio, what is it? Oh, LibreText and OpenStax, and like some of these OER textbooks show up multiple places. And so if that's something of interest, I know with guided pathways, I know that open access and OER is important. And I think that even though they are available on the web, students expect to be able to go to the library, find their course reserves, find, whatever it is in one place. So I do see.
I have a vague memory that Greg Bim was trying to do something like that. And yeah, and he might be really, really good to talk to. I think at that point in time, we were all just kind of completely overwhelmed. But I think that's a great idea, is to have a group of people kind of take a look at the open access collections available in the community zone and make some recommendations, because that's something that we've been putting off. Like, we know that there are all these open access collections, but we don't have the time to look through them. Life is so hard when you're 5.
Yeah, sorry, she's homesick today, so everything is terrible. She can't see her friends, and the PlayStation isn't playing her DVD, and yeah, I would imagine if anybody had a passion project of slogging through a bunch of open collections, it was Greg. So I'll definitely see if he's got something going that maybe I could pick up. And checklist for deciding on local versus CZ electronic collection.
Yeah, because a lot of times that's the hard part for us. Like, once we get to the point where we're walking through the steps of the activation, that we feel pretty good with that. But it's just the like, okay, so we've bought this package, what do we do now? Like, where do we get the records? Like, and I remember when we were first on Alma, there, Ex Libris pushes community zone, community zone, community zone, and we were trying to figure out like what stuff in the community zone matches up with the stuff that we pay for. We don't understand.
And some vendors are so much better at accurate collections than others. And sometimes I have been absolutely flabbergasted at what they have named the thing versus what they are billing me for. Gail, I'm looking at Gail. But yeah, that'd be, yeah, definitely something I would love to like put together and dive into, if that would be helpful. and especially with the Gale state package, I have a feeling that because of their rocky launch and support, anyone who is subscribing through the state library to the Gale package may not have everything activated for search that we actually have access to.
Well, and I also got an email from the Gale rep who said, oh yeah, like those 30 something one file collections that show up on the list of on our support page for you folks, but that we didn't invoice you for, they're really just subsets of Gale one file and Gale academic.
Yep.
But then this year we got invoiced for them, and
Yeah, they are. Yeah, every year my invoice says different. Well, it did say different things from Gale. The only thing that I could consistently expect the correct line by line invoice was for the hosting fees for our archival primary source collections. But and they had their big site redesign, summer of 2019, that like changed names of things. And so for a while they were, like they were still using Greener, but also environmental studies in context. And then you've got the in context versus the one file stuff. So it's fun. And if that's something that anyone is wanting to talk through, and I can do some investigation and try and get some collection level IDs in the CZ for the correct state packages, do some title list comparisons and such. Yeah, and I'd love to kind of hear how people deal with the comment that Amy made, that some of the records are brief, they're not great. Like, are you if you have subject areas at your college that you know are going to be in greater use, do like focus more on those in trying to get additional information for those, or like do you try and upload additional Excel files from KBART or one of the other formats? I know that I never went so far as to do that. It just wasn't worth it. And when it came to activating all of the micro collections within larger packages like Academic One File, I usually focused on subject areas where the results were going to be limited if they were doing a search on that subject in Academic One File, and letting them kind of go straight to their subject area kept them from getting a bunch of irrelevant results because of keyword weirdness, because we used a lot of direct database links on our subject guides, and I wanted that to match up with what they were seeing in Primo. But then we also did a lot of display logic ordering, so that the same article wasn't showing up as being available in 12 different places. We would kind of pick and choose which ones, so that, yeah, there might be 3, but at least they represented different-ish subject areas from the same vendor. So I don't know that we had a real great workflow for making those decisions. It was kind of like a, how do we feel about this? Or, like, what are our faculty pointing our students to? Because I had faculty who just told their students to search JSTOR. That's the only instruction they gave them. And so being able to list complementary sources of the same content in Primo, so that they saw that, oh, well, this thing is in JSTOR, but also in Gale literature online and, something else. Yes, bad links for Gale. For sure. I think they, their coverage metadata is terrible. More often than not, when it's a bad link, it's because it says it's available, but it's not really. So, however, weirdly, something I discovered was Gale access to some popular content, like what's included in General One file, was much more up to date for full text than ProQuest for the same resource. So I think I was looking at, oh gosh, it wasn't The Economist, but it was something like that. And both ProQuest and Gale, and I think even EBSCO, all claim to have current full text coverage. And ProQuest had not even done more than index the last 3 months. EBSCO was a month behind on indexing and full text, and Gale had the full text, but only in HTML, not in PDF. So at least it was something. So that's always interesting as well. But I could complain about Gale all day. So if anyone has any other questions, and I feel terrible because they're just people trying to do their jobs. It kind of sounds like from these chats, might there be interest in some vendor by vendor best practices for major vendors where, they can be a little different in quality and, linking capabilities and things like that?
Possibly, yes. But it always comes down to time. Who's got the time to do it? But it might also be kind of a time savings thing if we collaborate on this stuff together. Back to one of your early questions. I really appreciate having having text instructions with screen captures, because it lets me take my time and jump back and forth on the page. I tend not to like the video instructions, but I'm also middle-aged, so that might just be a generational thing.
I really love screenshots because I like circles and arrows, and I don't like editing videos to include circles and arrows.
I would definitely agree. I'm a screenshot kind of gal. I'm very visual. And so if I had the documentation and the video, I would always go for the documentation first because you could just scroll, as needed and refer to as needed. So I will also admit that I know like 1% of e-resources stuff. I tried activating a collection at some point last year and Wade had to save me from whatever mess I created because I had no background in it. But I was looking at Alma documentation and I just kind of looked at what's it called? Like Alma's knowledge base kind of and I tried to figure it out on my own and he eventually saved me. So this to me, like I'm very much a beginner. I don't know what's lower than beginner for e-resources. Amanda, thank you. I love the support, appreciate it. But I will admit, yeah, like this went a little bit over my head, but having your screenshots and then seeing you do it actually kind of helped me like connect a couple of things. So yeah, screenshots for sure. And very much a novice on this particular topic. But I know you mentioned it at the very beginning, our range in expertise is very, very broad.
Yeah, well, and I imagine that's going to be the case in pretty much any like process that I, like try to put something together on. So I don't want to like come in too high. I was thinking about also adding, as opposed to the Ex Libris videos and tutorials and LibGuide, adding some of the ones that I rely on, because I really enjoy the documentation from Carly, not myself, but it is very fun. The Illinois consortia, because they do a great job of providing screenshots and using the terms of the back end of Alma, which I'm always like, wait, what is that thing called again? Which tab is that on? And then I think it's called one thing and it's totally not. So yeah, so I have found a few reliable sources and then a few less than reliable sources as well. But just trying to vet all of them and go through all of them. None of y'all should have to go through 20 different tabs of versions of instructions to figure out which one works. So okay, well, it's about 10:40. I'm happy to continue to kind of chat about difficulties with activating e-resources, but also just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page for next week. I will have a meeting on Tuesday. I expect some folks will already be out for the holiday or will be extremely lightly staffed for the holiday week and may not be able to make it, but I will have an agenda with some announcements. I thought I'd kind of go through the spring roundup of conferences and things like that. And I will also hopefully be visiting a few people next week as I travel to the west side of the state and attempt to escape my parents' house, where my husband will also be attempting to work remotely and my parents will be trying to take care of my children with dodgy Wi-Fi at best. So yeah, so I may see some of you in person, and otherwise we'll have the Tuesday meeting, and not Thursday meet. Ooh, mandatory day of assessment training before Thanksgiving. That's awful. Oh, I'm so sorry. wow. Yeah, we finally, like Whitworth got to the point a couple of years ago where they were like, oh, everyone's skipping class on Wednesday anyway. We'll just cancel Wednesday. Well, guess what? Now everyone is just skipping on Tuesday. Like, it's just a slippery slope with these college students because every single parent is like, oh, you're only going to miss one class. Just drive early. So, but, all right, I am going to stop the recording. Stop.